guys, we got this. Let's go. Gun wide trip sweep. Pros X go. On one. Ready? Ready.
What's going on, everyone? ACAP24 here from HuddleGG. Today's video, we're going to talk about zones. And I want to make sure that you guys understand how college football and the zones that they have is not the way it plays in Madden. And a lot of people are getting this mixed up because they thought they understood, what the zones do in Madden. And that's what they're expecting them to do in college football. And that's what this video is going to be about, okay? I'm going to talk about mostly cover 3 as an example. I'm not going to go into every coverage when it comes to cover 4 drop versus cover 4 quarters versus cover 4 palms versus cover 6. That's not what this video is going to be about. This is going to be about understanding the difference between match zones and zone drops, and then understanding what you can do about them in college football to make sure that your defense plays the way that you're expecting them to. I'm finding way too many people ask me questions about, I thought this zone was going to do this because of my knowledge of Madden, and it ended up being something different. So let's jump into it, okay? Now, the first thing I want you to look at is the top of my screen. You're going to see that there are 3 different cover 3 coverages that are being shown. And in the top left of each one of these play arts, you're going to see a little word that says zone, match, zone, okay? Now, what I want you to understand with this is that EA has the ability to tag each play with one tag, okay? So I think this is messing up a lot of people. When you look at this, it's pretty self-explanatory. The first one that says zone, right? It's the cover 3 sky. You're going to look at those purples. Those purples are curl flats. Curl flats, for the most part, are zone drops. I want to say this as a caveat, is that every single zone in this game do have matching principles built in with the right route combination, but by design, a curl flat is not going to match on most route combinations that you would think, okay? So they're going to label this as a zone drop play. A curl flat, just for your reference, is basically exactly what it says. It's going to play the curl area first if there's any threats there, and then they're going to play the flat second. That's what a curl flat does. Now, with cover 3 match, those lighter pink ones that you see in the middle of my screen is a seam flat. Now, a seam flat, like it says, it's supposed to play the seam first and then the flat. Now, the reason why it's a match coverage is that if you see that the seam goes up the field at a vertical route with an accompanying route that's also vertical, he is going to match it, okay? So basically, by design, a seam flat was a matching zone. In Madden, you had the ability to switch it off. You could say, I want my guys to play default, and they basically, all they did was when they played default, they were able to go ahead and just play zone drops. No matter what they were, what color they were going to play the same way. That's not the case. If I go ahead and I look at my coach adjustments, people are thinking that, I'll take this off, all these are defaults, right? And if they're all default, that means that my guys are going to basically play just like zone drops because I didn't toggle on match. Well, there's no toggle this year, okay? So I want you to go to the third one. The third one's cover 3 lock. You're gonna see that on the left side, it's got those seam flats that are matching. And then on the right side, you've got a curl flat that's not matching. So you got one side of the field that's matching, the other side is not, okay? So let me show you what matching means. And so guys, that if you're watching it, and you don't understand what that, we're gonna start there. Matching is basically this simple principle that they're going to start off as zones where they're going to go into the drop, basically what you think that they're going to, indicate from the play art, and then they're going to turn into man coverage, okay? So if I go something like this to where I put, say my B on an in, the X on an in like this, and the A and the Y are on streaks. This is indicating that the vertical routes of each of these routes go to a spot that's deep enough to where it's going to trigger our players to go from zone to man. So if you look at this, you're going to look like it's a zone coverage, right? Well, when I hike the ball, these guys are now going to match their players and it's going to turn into what looks like a man coverage, okay? Now, the next thing you got to understand is that seam flats are just a key, okay? What do I mean by that? If you look at this, anytime a seam flat is on the field, it's going to tell you that the zone that is the deep zone next to it is going to be affected by having a seam flat. That's basically saying, I want match coverage on the field. I'm triggering that, okay? So anytime the seam flat is, say, on the right, that deep zone next to it is going to also match. And then on the left side, you're gonna see that the seam flat's on the field, the zone next to it is going to match, okay? Now, in Madden, and I think this is the biggest thing where people are having a problem with, is if I went ahead and I changed this where the curl flats, which basically all the purples, right? This is how it was in, you see how it says overrides the drop depth for the curl flat, quarter flat, and seam flat zones. If I was to put this in a different depth, that would turn off match. Well, I'm gonna call cover 3 match the same way. I'm gonna call the exact same play, the hitch seams. And you're saying, out loud to yourself, if I go ahead and do that, the seam flats are gonna turn off. I don't have match on the field. That's true, but untrue. We just turned off the seam flats. We didn't turn off the deep zones to the right that were associated with the seam flats. So if I do the same exact route combination, I'll do slants just because I'll give you a different one. It's the same thing, it's easier to see. What you're gonna notice is that we go ahead and do this, hike the ball. What you're gonna see is the ability to show that, go ahead and show it into the replay so you understand it. The outside players, remember, those guys are not in seam flats. Obviously, they're outside thirds, right? So this guy right here, he's still matching because we didn't turn him off. We only turned off the seam flat. And so the other side was the same thing, right? So on this side, the outside guy, he's not turned off. He's going to match that guy. Now you look over here, who's covering this guy? It would have been the seam flat, but we turned him off. And we looked over here, it would have been this guy, but we turned him off, right? So now you've got two guys that aren't getting covered because the seam flats would have covered them in a normal zone coverage, but we turned those off, right? So how do we do this to make sure that we don't get messed up? It's actually pretty simple. You got to take the seam flats off the field. So how do you do that? There's some formations where I can go ahead and I can go to this Y and I can turn it and put them into a curl flat. Okay, what you're going to see is that there are some formations out there that you have 3 safeties on the field and you can't do that. So all you have to do is shade over the top. If you shade over the top, those seam flats are going to turn into curl flats and now they're not going to match. And because we don't have the seam flat indicator that we want the outside guys to match with them, what you're going to see is the same exact route combination I just did. By just shading over the top and taking the seam flats off the field, everybody's going to play the way that you would expect them to play, and now you've got that ability to go ahead and do it. Now, I did have zone drops on at 10 yards, and you're gonna see that when I did so, these guys on the outside did exactly what I told them to do. I told this curl flat to basically go to 10 yards and stop. That's what a zone drop does. I want you to guard grass. I want you to count the blades. I don't want you to move. I want you to stay right there. That's what a zone drop tells you. If you look on the other side, same thing. I told you to stay at 10 yards. I don't want you to cover anybody. Basically, I want you to settle there and stop. That's basically what those zone drops doing, okay? So that's the key that you need to understand about that. Now, the next thing I want you to talk about is that these are not just going to say match on the card. If you look at the middle play, see how it says match, you're like, okay, I understand match, whatever, right? Well, if I go into my play designs here, I go into formations, and I'm just going to go ahead and call any play, right? Or any formation. I'm going to call, see that says the cover 3 buzz match. That's real simple. It says match. I understand. That's going to play match. Now, I'm going to go to this one called Edge Blitz 3. Now, you look at Edge Blitz 3, you're going to see that there's a blitz tag. Now, that blitz tag, like I said in the beginning of the video, EA only has the ability to tag it with one name. Do you see how those pink type of zones are on the field? Those are seam flats. So those are going to match. It's not what the play says. Yes, it says blitz. If you're just looking at that and saying, I'm just looking for the match like you see on the top left over there with the palms, and that's when you're going to get alerted, that's not the key to it. That's just a tag. What the key to it is the color of the zone, and when seam flats are on the field, it's going to match, okay? So that's the principle I really wanted to talk about in this video, is understanding, what zones are going to match and what the zones are going to be and how to take it off when you want to. Now, in cover 2, the way that this is going to work. I just want to make sure that you understand this, and we're just going to kind of go over this for you in cover 2 and cover 3 so you can understand what's a matching, what's not, right? So if I go into cover 2, you're going to see that these things are going to call these darker ones, these turquoise ones. Those are cloud flats. Those are not going to match the way, this is going to be kind of like what you would say a curl flat would be. Those are your non-matching ones. But if I go to cover 2 blitzes, it's going to be called a lighter color one. It's a soft squat. Now a soft squat is going to match, but a cloud flat is not going to match from the principles of it. Like I said, we can get any zone 2 match, but the design of them is the soft squats match, it's the lighter color, it's the more transparent ones do, and the clouds don't. Now if I go to cover 4, what you're gonna see the difference between these 3. The quarters and the palms, see how they have the lighter colors of the purple? Those are matching quarter flats. The cover 4 drop has the curl flats. Those are not going to match. So it's the same things as I was telling you before, to where if you have a cover 4 palms and you leave those quarter flats on the field, even if you put them in different zone drops, those, you're telling the quarter flats not to match, but the outside players are going to match with them, because the key is the zone that's left on the field that the outside guys are going to match with it. So hopefully that kind of clears it up for you. I know I didn't do a whole lot of demonstration, more of a talking points, but I wanted to make sure you understood the difference between the colors and what they are. I'll just go ahead and put out cover 4 palms out there so you can understand, the difference. When you see the word quarter flats, you should kind of think in your mind, they're going to react like seam flats do when it comes to being the key to making the rest of the plays, or the rest of the play design match with it. If I was to go ahead and I do over the top coverage with it, now I turned it to curl flats, they're not going to match. Curl flats basically turn off match, and then the quarter flats, seam flats, soft squats are the indicators that turn it on when it comes to the other zones around it. So that's basically what this video is about. Hopefully I cleared that up for you, because that is not the same way that it is in Madden, but it is something that I wanted to address because a lot of people are struggling with it, and I want to make sure that you had the keys to make sure that you have the ability to understand how things are going to play based upon the new game of college football. Appreciate you guys. If you guys are struggling with defense, we do have a game plan coming out later this week that's going to get you the ability to go ahead and get to the quarterback with blitzes, show you the best coverages, and really just give you the opportunity to elevate your game. So check it out on our website at HuddleGG. It should be out this week, so definitely take a look at it. Most likely be able to get another video to let you guys know when it is out. And we appreciate all your support, and we'll catch you on the next one, guys.